do, 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 do. I'm going to cut that out.
No, I think it's good. I think people... Because if someone wants to load the podcast into their DAW, it's good to give them like a tempo reference. Yeah. And if anybody wants to do edits at home, you can keep it perfectly in time. Nice jacket, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured that I wear so many jeans and I wear so many t-shirts and tank tops. It was time for me to get some like sweet little jackets that aren't warm. They're just fashionable. And I went for the loudest patterns possible. So,
no, you're doing a real springtime thing this spring.
Yeah. I got pink jeans for the first time in my life.
Yeah, you're just being like, bright.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm tired of gray.
I was just talking to an artist I was working with today about, it must be fun to, guys, we kind of dress so the same all the time.
Especially
which is
you.
Also fun, especially me. Maybe I shouldn't even say guys. Me, I dress the same all the time. And it's fun because you don't have to think about it. And then other times you're like, it would be kind of fun to, look different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is fun. Makes you feel better. I mean, here we are at home, and I just put on this jacket. For those who are not watching YouTube, it is what is this, it's like a sporty,
it's called? In England they would call it a trainer.
Okay. It's sporty.
Yeah.
And it's got it's white with black trim, and it has flowers all
over it. Springtimey.
Yeah.
It's like a very light windbreaker.
Yeah.
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 So
I think this is my new thing.
Yeah, in England they call them trainers.
Okay.
But they also call sneakers, like running shoes, trainers. So it's a little confusing. Anyway, so welcome to English Fashion Talk with Justin and Adrienne. I don't know where we're going here. We're off the rails so quickly. How was your week?
All right. My week was great. I went out to Fort Collins for the third time in a week.
Yeah,
I never go up there,
Fort
but
Collins.
3 times. Yeah, so twice for FOCO MX last weekend. And then on Friday, I went up there again. Pamela Machala and her band, Pamela Machala landed a spot on, what is it called? LOL, Lunch at, what is it called?
I don't know.
Shoot. I'm going to have to edit that out. But it's a lunchtime hour-long feature on KRFC 88.9 FM.
The radio station up there.
Yeah, so we went up there. They share some space with the Music District, which is a music hub up there. It's a really cool place. I actually went into both buildings.
Wow.
To check out and see if Performance High could work out of there.
Oh, that's cool.
Which we can't.
Yeah. Well.
But, so anyway, full-on setup, audio and video, the nicest people. The guys were so professional and so helpful. I mean,
it must just
we just felt so cared for. I love Fort Collins.
Fort Collins just seems to be a mecca for that.
It's amazing. It feels like Boulder did when I first moved to Boulder.
Wow, I wonder if it is kind of at the stage.
Yeah.
Boulder,
Yeah, when I moved to Boulder in 2000, it still had a bit of a hippie vibe. It still had a very loose, every time I would go out downtown, I would see 1 or 2 people I knew. And so it was just like a small enough town, but big enough to have some stuff going on. And I just remember parties and just feeling real at home and knowing people. And then, of course, Boulder. And I was one of them. I was one of the techies who moved in.
Right.
I was part of the change, unfortunately. But now Boulder is very techy and very expensive, and it just doesn't feel the same to me.
Well, and you lose that thing where, there's at some point, there's an ability for a town or a place or a scene to not be not every single thing needs to be about money, and then things get expensive enough to where it's okay, every single thing needs to be about money,
right? Because the real estate costs so much that no matter what you do,
and everything,
in that place,
and the inflation, but there is that cool window of okay, people can be cool for cool's sake.
Yeah, and I don't know the first thing about Fort Collins other than having been there 3 times in the last week.
And had great experiences.
But I loved it there.
Yeah.
The vibe was just chill and cool. It was very collegiate. We had great veggie tacos. Anyway, so recorded with Pamela.
It's been a week of radio, by the way, because Adrienne O started playing on Indie 102.3.
Yeah, well, we talked about that last week.
Well, we did, but you got some Who was it?
Melissa.
Melissa.
Melissa Ivy, my cat mama.
Yeah.
She sent me a video when it came on and she was driving and she was rocking out to it. She was in the video for You Don't Want My Love.
Yeah,
She's
right.
one of the many, well, not too many, one of the 10 or so women that are friends of mine in the music scene, one way or another.
Right.
Who was in that video. So she was rocking out.
Yeah.
So fun.
So that stuff started playing on the radio, and that's cool. Anyway, we talked about
back
that.
to Pamela at KRFC at the Ginger and Baker studio. Overall, just a great experience. It's an hour-long show that it's going to air next Friday at noon on KRFC 88.9. And it's about 40 minutes of music and 20 minutes of talking, and it's all interspersed. So they talked to not only Pamela, but every member of the band to find out what's going on. So I would highly recommend it. It's a great way to get some exposure, which I know is like a bad word in music, but not only that, but you get the audio and the video.
Right.
So it's a great way to get some media for your promotion, which is
that's so nice.
One of the reasons we're doing this, because this version of Pamela's band is relatively new. So,
Yeah, and you got to get some media to just let people be able to see it remotely and,
for booking purposes.
And
promotion
and just
stuff,
promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sean.
Team Mule. So the director of the project at KRFC was Sean, and he's a performer as well. He goes by Team Mule, and everybody else on staff was like, he's an amazing singer. And I was just starting to check him out right before we sat down to record this, but I didn't actually find any clips of him. No, a short clip of him.
You were
starting
listening to a little bit of it. Yeah.
Some cool stuff. But anyway, they're all musicians. One of the audio engineers was a session drummer, and, all the guys like musicians are. Like, we all wear 1,000 hats. And do a bunch of things.
Of course. Everybody you got to be ready to do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Had many jobs and was in other bands.
Right. So, so that was Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just Friday.
Right.
Gosh.
And we are recording this only on Saturday because we have some busy days coming up. But
yeah, you'll hear about that next week.
We had a couple of realizations this week.
Yeah.
Maybe we could skip to those. Just 20 minutes ago at dinner, I had a realization about, artist identity. It's a tiny one. It's not a big thing. But I have been listening to the new Adrienne O songs on repeat. I went to the gym. I listened to the same song 5 times in a row. I listened to my own music, like all the way to Fort Collins and back, singing it. I'm so excited about it. Anyway,
yeah. But
one thing I realized I do in production a lot is I use scales as little fillers. So in what, there's I like hit a glass. I went, hit a glass.
Yeah,
and
right,
went, ding, 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 ding. And then I pitch shifted it so it goes ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, and it goes right down the scale. Yeah.
And then in the new song, No One Will Remember, I thought it needed a little something sparkly, and so I added some ascending and descending scales, like do 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 do. We're coming into a higher energy section of the song. It's gonna go do 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 do, or song is ending. We're gonna go do 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 do. And I guess that's my thing. And to me, it seems very not creative. Because it seems so obvious. But what I realized is whatever is obvious to you is your thing, because what's obvious to different people is not the same thing.
That in many ways is your style. Like just what naturally occurs to you. That's a good chunk of your style. I forget who I was talking to, an artist development client this week, where they were like all bummed out about their material, and they're just like, I just feel like I'm just not even like doing anything. I'm just doing like whatever occurs to me to do. And it was like, and that is your style. You don't need to always be stepping out of your box which is, I'm so mixed up because we were talking last week about I'm like trying to find new guitar stuff to do and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there is the other side of the coin where it's just like what sounds right to you and what feels right to you and what you want to hear is, that's your style.
Yeah, I mean, and that may not feel...
It points in the direction of your style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may not feel groundbreaking to you because that is what is obvious to you.
And that's the big point. That's
Yeah.
sort of the big realization. It's like you don't need to be, you know, if it feels right to you, you know, that's your thing.
Yeah.
You know. But then on the other hand, I can speak to production stuff, and we've been doing so much production on the AO stuff. Which, you know, I'll take one step back. Unpopular opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Unpopular opinion. Not about the Jews, but other than the Jews, Kanye was right.
What?
Kanye West was always so like my record this is the best record that's ever come out, and like my only regret is I can't see myself live.
Right,
like
I
all
remember
these
that.
like ridiculous things that Kanye would say. And I would say, and I'll say it right now, unpopular opinion, best case scenario, you should feel that way about the music you're making.
I feel that way about the music we're making right now.
Anyone should. Not you, anyone should. I mean, keep it within the taste of, you know, decorum, and you don't need to be, you know, all bragging and gross about it. But at the same time, like, if you're not making what you think is the greatest thing going in your particular style, you know, you're not beating Merle Haggard on writing country songs, but you know what I mean? Like, in your lane, if you're not doing the hottest thing you can think of, back to the drawing board. What are you doing? You know, like, you should be doing, you know, the things that, you know, and again, Kanye wrong about a lot of things, but he should, you know, he right about, like, you should be that level of hyped about your own stuff.
Yeah.
Or not that you should be, but you should be shooting for that.
Yeah. And I think I was shooting for that in the last versions of Adrienne O when I was a newer writer.
Right.
And something has matured in the last 5 years, 8 years. Yeah, gosh, it's been 8 years since we released Elevation. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's wild.
2016?
7
years,
8,
okay.
Yeah.
Something has matured to the point where the stuff we are making now is stuff that it achieves its vision of what each song is supposed to be.
Right.
And so I love it.
Yeah.
And that's you know, who is it? There's there's some artist coach or there's some artist piece of advice that's common. I don't know, Seth Godin or Austin Kleon or somebody who wrote about it, where when you decide to become an artist because you want to make things that you like, at first there's this frustrating talent gap. That's what it's called. It's called the talent gap.
Okay.
You know what you like and you're unable to make it.
Oh, I've read this also.
Right.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I can't remember much about it other than the fact that, like, you have to push through that. You have to just keep trying to make the thing you're trying to make until you gain the skills to be able to fulfill the vision for what you're creating. And this last round of songwriting has been just, I've never felt so fulfilled by what we've created.
Yeah. I've often felt, you know, I've written in so many different styles and genres and functions, you know, like you're trying to get different things done when you're writing songs, but the things I like and care about and am proud of, even if it wasn't my original song, meaning I was writing for somebody else or with someone else, are those things where I was looking for something I wanted to hear. Like, I had a feeling and there wasn't a song that nailed that feeling. That, you know, when you get that, like, you get this deep feeling and you just want to put one song on repeat because it's just like, it's talking to that feeling. And when I've written with that goal in mind of, which an AO song that I wrote, Me in the Sky, was exactly that, where I was like, I want to hear this thing, and I'm like scrolling through Spotify and I can't find the thing, and I'm like, I'm writing the thing. Like, I'm writing what I want to hear and what I want to put on repeat. And that for me was one of those songs where it was like, you know, I just wanted to hear this thing.
I need
this
to
emotion.
marinate in this feeling.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to marinate in it, and I can't find it, so I'm going to make it.
And it's a challenge if you're a newer artist to realize that thing, to make it, to actually make it come into being.
Yeah.
You may know what you want, but you don't have the ability to make it yet.
Right.
And I am just thrilled to find that apparently I I have the ability now.
Right.
I don't think I did before. Although looking back, I've been listening to a lot of old AO stuff lately.
Yeah, to be fair.
And I am surprised.
To be very fair.
I'm surprised how good it was.
And
Some of it.
I told you that a couple years ago. Like, there's a lot of it that is like, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You're right. I was always authentic.
You were always...
A little preachy sometimes, but maybe.
Very authentic. And there is also the thing, I mean, Adrienne has a little bit of that curse of being just... I mean, this is going to sound braggy, but it's not braggy. But, like, there is a little gap where... And it's sort of why, like we were talking about last week, and I was talking shit about these wonderful, successful people who are trying to keep rock and roll going and whatever. But there's this thing where if something is very like something you've heard before, you can judge it against what you've heard before. And if there's just enough of an originality gap, you're like, I don't really know what to think of this because I can't quite compare it to something else because it's not close enough. Like, it's just original enough and far enough away from kind of an intellectual stepping stone thing that I can't go, oh, this is just like Van Halen, but a little different, but almost as good, or, and we're just a little, all that stuff was just a little left field enough that there isn't an easy comparison.
Oh, our stuff.
The older AO stuff. Oh. Where it always just had this little thing about it where it's like, well, you've never heard anything quite like that. And I mean, we were putting it very squarely in a genre, but even then it just had enough of a stamp of things where you can't go like, oh, it's just like this thing, but it's different. It's just a little intellectually hard to hold on to the idea. I mean, it's one of the things we talk about with branding, where you have to have ideas, have to have handles.
Right.
There has to be this thing you can hold on to and kind of like, move it around in your brain. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of but the older AO stuff, I mean, in some ways it's a height of my production. Oh, yeah. Abilities.
Now that I've learned more about production in the ensuing years, I listen back to the Elevation EP and I'm like, wow.
That was a lot
of work.
A lot of grinding.
No wonder.
That is note for note. It took so long.
Oh my gosh. So much.
Often getting a note a day, just grinding it out.
And I was so frustrated at the time about how long it was taking.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, we were trying to
level up. That's why we called it Elevation.
Yeah, gosh.
And I finally put 3 of those songs on YouTube. I hadn't put them on YouTube before because we didn't make music videos for
right,
them.
Right.
So we had a music video for Catch Me, and I made a music video out of Awake, but it was really like an EP party celebration.
Right.
But I never put the other 3 up. And I did last night, and in the last 24 hours, 2 of them have gotten like 80 or 90 views, which is not a huge number, but I'm like,
in that amount of time,
for an inactive band, like, what? All I did was put them on YouTube. I didn't even mention it on Facebook or anywhere.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Gosh, although speaking of songwriting, I was telling you, I looked at my various things were good. Jana MC, Janna MC, her song, I guess, is out now. That was a production I did a month ago or something. But the song's out.
Millennial Jeans.
Very cool song, very cool production. Well, I shouldn't say. I'm the one who produced it. But, I think it's okay. Anyway, I was looking, we were talking about BMI and publishing, and so I went to look at my thing because I had to get my, BMI number. And
wait, BMI being what?
Okay, so there are these things called PROs, which are performing rights organizations. And what these organizations do is every time your song is performed, which might be literally live, so you can turn in your own set list and be like, I played my song live. Or your song is performed in the right instances on YouTube or Spotify, or one of the big ones would have been terrestrial radio. Or if, like me, you have songs that are in movies and TV shows, every time somebody watches that movie or TV show, your song is performed. And what these performance rights organizations do is they keep track of all of those times and they collect your money for you. So if and literally the rundown they do is unbelievable. Sorry to get like in this crazy backwater, but like sometimes I'll look at my report and there'll be like 3 plays on jukeboxes in Australia. Like literally, you know, and it's right there. There is a line item for the 3 times your song was played on a jukebox in Australia.
It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing. One of the weird ones was, where did I say it was? There was one play on TV in Slovenia or something.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah. One play on TV in Slovenia, and they track it. And you go like, what were the circumstances that possibly led to that song being played one time on Slovenian television? Like, what could have possibly happened? Did some TV engineer pass out exactly at the right time and knock his laptop off the desk? And what could have happened? Anyway.
But so how many
Oh yeah, that was the whole
see?
point. Well, not streams, but between movies, TV, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all this stuff. In quarter 1 of 2022, songs that I had part of writing had like 2.5 million performances.
2022 or 2023?
2022, because it's always a year kind of behind.
Okay.
So, quarter 1 of 2022, 3 months, 2.5 million plays worldwide.
And that is stuff that you wrote 20 years ago.
Most of it, the Adrienne stuff is on there. That's not putting up the big numbers, but like it's on there too. And there's various things I have part of. There's a couple things I did in Jacksonville that I have part of.
I think you might owe me a few cents.
I might owe you a few cents. Yeah, we'll see. But I only get my part of the thing. Anyway, just to shine a light on how glamorous it is, 2.5 million plays for a total of $111.
Kids, don't become musicians.
Yeah, granted, to be fair, there's more to that picture. Most of those plays were from sync, meaning it was in movies or TV, or Say Yes to the Dress Atlanta included a No Address song apparently this year. So like I'd never seen that show up before.
Wow.
But yeah, so there's a No Address song in Say Yes to the Dress Atlanta, and apparently people in England are watching that show. It's pretty England's come up a lot. Anyway, when your stuff is in sync, meaning it's in movie or TV, like it's synced with an image, you only get paid proportionally for how long it's played. You don't get the whole amount of money for if the whole song was played. So if you get 5 seconds of the song, you only get paid for the 5 seconds of the song. So that's why that number is so low, is that it got a bunch of plays for 11 seconds while there was a background thing happening or whatever. But anyway, that's just a window in the world of publishing. I had no idea that stuff was that kind of numbers. It was wild. I guess I just hadn't seen that kind of report before. It's just the first thing I pulled up to be like, where's my BMI number? And I was like, oh my God. Like,
yeah. I don't see numbers like that, but I have some jazzy
that's right. Yeah.
stuff I did with a couple of different co-writers a long time ago, and there was a little bump a few years ago when some of them got put into some TV show in like Japan or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a good year for these little songs that I wrote. I mean, I top-lined.
And that stuff,
tracks,
I mean, that is the other side of it and it's one of the things that's cool about music and cool about what we're doing and what everybody does is you throw these things out into the world, and you never get to see, sort of like throwing a rock in a pond, you never get to see how far the ripples go.
Yeah.
They just go independently of anything you're doing. You just put something into the world, and sometimes there's this, you'll run into someone years later who's like, hey, I so loved whatever, and you're like, how in the world? Like,
to bring it full circle, that's how I felt this weekend up in Fort Collins, because Sean, i.e. or AKA T-Mule,
T-Mule.
recognized me as being from Adrienne O. He's like, oh yeah, I've heard about you guys for years. And I was like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And I also ran into Mr. Tim, just in the parking lot of the music district because he was about to go do an outdoor show. Mr. Tim, he's an a cappella looper guy. He like makes these entire shows out of just his voice and a looper pedal.
Right, you were telling me, yeah.
And many, many moons ago, when I had my first band that I started, it was a wedding band, and our very first gig, we hired him in as a male singer because we didn't have a male lead. And
wow,
capturing videos,
going back that far.
It goes back far.
Yeah, it always does.
But I walked by him. He's like, Adrienne O, and I was like, Mr. Tim. Oh my gosh. So I think there's still a little bit of an audience for Adrienne O out there somewhere. Yeah,
and that, and I've been talking to a bunch of people about in artist development stuff. That's one thing to always keep in mind, even though you might not hear back from people or you might not see immediate things from people, or maybe I've seen it with either like booking or trying to get press for things where you're like, man, I've written to this person for 3 years about getting a gig there, never even got a reply. And then I happen to run into them and they're like, oh, hey man, I'm such a big fan. I'm so sorry I never got back to, like, you can't, just because you're not hearing back does not mean that people aren't seeing it, that they aren't liking it.
Yeah.
You often just don't get the feedback, and you shouldn't let that discourage you because you really don't know.
Yeah, that's the way I felt when I was pushing Adrienne O, the band, in the early teens.
Which you worked very hard on.
I always felt like the noise I was getting back through, I guess through mainly people coming to shows,
right,
was not commensurate with the energy I was putting out there. Mm-hmm. But I think that's only one measurement. First of all, I was doing that, I guess that would be in my 40s.
Right.
And it's hard to get people in their 40s out to shows.
Yeah, it's going to be.
But as I move around the world these days, and you too, people recognize us from that band. Who I never saw at shows.
Right.
And so there's a reach that can be measured in many different ways. And it's bigger than what I realized. And
you don't know, maybe people aren't liking or commenting on the social medias, but you don't know who's seeing what. You don't know who's following what.
Yeah.
It's a very cool thing. Gosh, let's get it back down to ground. I feel like we talked about a bunch of crazy stuff. So speaking of an Adrienne O story, your ex-student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, why is this an Adrienne O story?
Because she mentioned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I went to a new venue called Orchid Denver. It's in downtown Denver. It used to be, I think it used to be a hip hop club. That's what Casey told me. I went there to see my ex-student, Desiree Gold, who was playing there, and happened upon my other ex-student, Casey Harding Brown, who you produce. She was one of my first students. She's a friend of Desiree, so she was there watching. And I ran into Casey, and Casey said, I was just wondering, like a couple weeks ago, if you had let Adrienne O, the band, go forever. Like, is it dead? Is it over? And then a few days later, after I thought that, I saw that you guys were playing a show. And I was like, yeah! And I was like, oh my, that makes me feel so good. Another person who cares. That's all we want. We just want someone to care. And I wrote a song about this in the new Adrienne O.
Oh, yeah.
Called Famous. All we want is some attention. That's all we want. It's a very sarcastic song, but it's got some elements of truth to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not all of us want attention, but...
No, but you're the side guy.
Yeah, right. Was that at Orchid or... Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
That's where I ran into
I haven't
Casey.
been there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice, like, jazzy R&B club now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I just didn't know the venue.
Yeah, it's got a front room with a bar and then a back room with the venue.
Okay.
Venue and seating. It's nice. It's kind of a Live at Jack's sort of feel, I would say.
Oh, like the old Live at Jack's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Or current Live at Jack's. I'm sorry, I'm the worst. I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it did close. I mean, I know Sandra's not running it anymore.
Oh, okay. But Sandra's doing so much stuff.
Oh yeah, she's booking all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. If
I
you're,
wonder.
yeah.
Wonder what's going on at Live at Jack's.
Yeah.
In that space these days.
In that space, yeah.
I'm curious. That's where I used to go to Nate Marsh's funk jams, remember?
Oh my gosh, that's the connection. Not the connection, but that's one of the I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. I went to Live at Jack's frequently for Nate's funk jams, but also even more frequently Jacob Larson Band gigs. When I was singing backup for Jacob. I'm singing backup for Jacob a couple times this summer, actually.
Did I tell you I recorded a song with Jacob just the other week?
Oh, that's right.
Did we talk about that?
We didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jacob and his friend Caroline, who is in music publishing in Nashville for Atlantic Records.
Oh my gosh.
And knew who Stevo Robinson was.
No way.
Yeah, it was like...
Okay,
yeah.
so tell, who's Stevo?
Stevo Robertson was in A&R and signed me, my band, No Address, and now is like, and I think that's why Caroline would know him, he's like president of all music at Atlantic. He has some like crazy title that never existed before. Like there used to be like, you know, executive vice president of rock and I mean, that's not what it was, but like, just for an example, an executive vice president of rap and whatever. And I think Stevo is like literally like president of popular music. he's like, he's gone.
And he's the guy who signed No Address.
He's the guy who signed No Address. Yeah.
Cool.
And was more than signed us, was very instrumental in our development. And I spent hours and hours on the phone with the guy every week, and he paid so much attention to our demos and gave us so much feedback. And what I would give Stevo the most credit for the genesis of me getting into artist development, because it was what Stevo Robertson did to me, and because he's now president of all music, king of all music at Atlantic Records. I'm sure he's done for hundreds of artists, but he did it for me. And having somebody, you know, not even really teach you, but just help you develop and help you take your thing to the next level, and all the accountability and all the what about this, what about that, and here's what you're great at, do more of that, or just not even the blanket, do more of that, just what about this because I like it, you know, just what about this, what about that, and having someone involved in that way. And Stevo really did so much for me as an artist and producer and all those things, and gave me the idea of doing artist development for other artists.
Yeah.
Because that's something that in the old label system, you would get tons of time with an A&R guy whose job ideally was that. There are plenty of bum A&R guys who didn't do any of that, but like the good ones, like Stevo, did tons of that, and that's something most artists don't get the option to have, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes even the production I'm doing on the AO stuff now, where you're doing a lot of the production, but we'll sit down and you'll just play me what you're doing, and I'll just be like, what about this? What about that? I'm feeling like maybe give me a little more of this, and come back and tell me.
It's so valuable.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I spend, you know, a few hours working on something, and then I kind of go into the weeds here and there, and then I bring to you where I am, and you're like, nudge it this way, nudge it that way, new idea. And I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. And then I go away and work on it again. And that's part of the reason we're coming up with the best stuff that we ever have, is you're more involved in the songwriting process than you were before.
I guess in a way that's true, and in a way it's not, because I give you stuff and you go away and work on it, and it used to be, I just don't think we had the workflow as, you know, optimized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
But anyway, that got off on a tangent too. Jacob and Caroline,
Right.
they recorded a duet of a song.
Oh, is
Bishop Briggs and
Oh, right.
and I forget the male singer, but anyway, they did this duet, and oh my gosh, was it magical working with stunningly great singers, which I mean, of course you are, and I work with plenty of them, Jana and you know, Cody, of course, but like it was just really fun, as it always is, working with these creative, great singers. And it was like where the mechanics are so down that now we're just talking about feelings.
Yeah.
And we did vocals, and then we comped, which comp is where you might do 3 or 5 takes of a like song, and then you grab the best parts of maybe, okay, for take 3 we'll use this line, and from take 5 we'll use this line, and from take 1 we'll use this line. And it's when you're working with singers who aren't as technically accomplished, comping is very easy because you go, well,
right.
well, that's the one time you did it good, so obviously we'll use that time. But when you're working with these great singers and these really technically accomplished singers, you're like, okay, it's all great, but which one had the most feeling? And just, it was so fun sitting around and like debating, like, is it a little sadder when you kind of did this? And should it be versus the lyrics? And then this is, you know, it's just, it was a blast. Anyway, I guess that's just a little view into the whole thing. 35 minutes, 36 minutes.
Oh, it's time to wrap.
It's time to wrap.
Especially since we didn't even plan on doing a podcast tonight, but we were sitting at dinner. I was on my second drink in, and I suddenly realized we have a gig tomorrow night, Sunday night.
And then we have drummer auditions.
Drummer auditions on Monday night.
Yeah. And that's...
So kind of crunches us for time.
Yeah, so if this podcast wasn't that great for you, we did our best. Maybe not our best, but we did it. We did it.
Do we have any lessons, failures, takeaways, mistakes?
I think, once again, I need to get a lot more boundaries about how much work is going into stuff that is not you, but other things where...
You have no boundaries with me, but yes.
Yeah, and... Gosh, and I guess, you know, here's the takeaway. I realize how much, and you really got to work on it, because you do need to be a critical thinker and a critical listener when you're doing music, but at the same time, you can't be listening out of logic. You've really got to actually use your ears and just listen, and like not do the thing where logically 5 instruments were playing and then it dropped to 1, so now it's empty because 5 to 1 is a big thing, and you're not actually listening to whether or not that felt that way. You're using your brain.
Right.
And I think that's one thing I could do a lot better job with people, of helping them understand, like, no, like, stop thinking, just listen. And it's hard. I wouldn't, give anybody a hard time about it, because you spend all this time using your critical thinking skills, but you got to throw that away sometimes. So that is my takeaway. What's yours?
Not sure if I have one.
Well, you've been just winning all over the place, so there's not, you always learn more from something not going well than things going well. And is a week of wins. Boy, they're rare, but you had a good week.
I guess I did. That's funny to say, because my mood wasn't good.
Yeah, in other ways it didn't feel like that, but
yeah.
Yeah, but musically killing it.
Musically, it was a great week.
All right. Okay. Well, I hope that was edifying.
Why do you listen?
Why? We appreciate it so much. By the way, we're going to be having guests on, so it's not just us.
Yes, Joe Mondragon's going to be on next week.
Joe Mondragon. And please, if you're watching out there and you would like to be a guest, of course, say something. If you made it to this point in the podcast, I deeply doubt your judgment, but give us a ring. We'll see if you could be on. Anyway, we are sponsored by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio and...
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
We're sponsored by Performance High.
Performance High. All
See
right.
you next week.
Bye.